Hi class, wanted to give you a quick video on some information about how to set up Maya for production so that you're ready to be able to utilize it properly. I find a lot of people when they're first starting to use 3D programs don't quite understand how they should be setting the software up so that everything's organized for them. So I wanted to go through that, and then I'm going to take us through our first project so that you can feel comfortable with what we're doing in there. I realize some of you are fairly new to 3D, have some experience, but I'll be taking you a little bit further down the road in our class. Okay. In Maya, one of the things that we want to do is we want to install Mental Ray. Now, Mental Ray is a plugin. It's an advanced renderer for Maya. Maya's a little bit different. Both Maya and Max use Mental Ray. Mental Ray is a physical-based renderer. Physical-based just means it uses physical-based attributes like true world attributes on its shaders. The default shaders in Max and default shaders in Maya are not physical-based, and so they don't work exactly correctly. The entire industry has moved towards a physical-based rendering situation that's called a PBR. Pixar, Disney, gaming companies, they all move towards this. So with Maya, you have to download it. And I'll put this link up in our forum thread so that you'll know how to download it. So you'll want to download and install Mental Ray. Now, you can see here they've got it for Linux. I doubt anybody's using Linux here. Here's one for Windows, and here's one for the people that are using a Mac. Okay, so you'll just want to download this file. Okay, so just click on it and download it. Now, once you download it, it'll come into a folder, and you'll have an executable, and then you'll want to double click on this. And then what this will do is it's a little confusing. You'd think when you're running this, it's installing Mental Ray. It's not. It's just uncompressing this file into a folder, and then you'll have a folder here, and then you run this setup, and then it'll set up Mental Ray so that it works inside of Maya. Now, if you're a Max user, you don't have to do this because it comes with Max. Maya is just a little bit different. You have to install it. Now, this is a free plugin, so don't worry about any kind of cost or anything. It's a free plugin. Excuse me. And this will set you up for being able to do the things that we want to do in class. Now, you want to make sure that you don't have Maya loaded when you install it, because Maya will want to search for it when it loads. So you want to install it, then reboot Maya so that Maya reads it, and then I'll show you how to set it up. Okay, so once Maya comes up, we have to turn the Mental Ray renderer on, okay? And it's pretty simple. All you have to do is go up here to your menu, Windows, and you're going to pull down to Settings and Preferences, and then you're going to pull down here to the Plugin Manager. Okay, and this window will open. These are the plugins that install with Maya. So you're going to scroll down, okay, and you're going to go right down to here where it says Mental Ray for Maya for 2016, which is this Maya mentalray.mll. Okay, and so we want to click both of these buttons, and what this will do is it means the next time you don't have to do this every time when you load Maya, it'll automatically load it. Okay, and then we want to pick it as our renderer. So if you go back to Windows, go to Render Editors, and then go to Render Settings, this window will pop up, and by default, right up here, it's the renderer we're using, which is Maya's internal renderer. We want to switch this to Mental Ray, and now we'll be using the Mental Ray renderer. I would tell you by default, when you come in here, the quality may be not set too high, so you might want to bring up your quality settings a little bit. Maybe something like 1.5 would work pretty good. We don't want to get too high because it slows down our render as we're working, but we want a pretty good quality, okay? Okay, so that sets up Mental Ray, okay? Now, the next thing we want to do is we want to set Maya up. A lot of people just think, okay, then we just start creating in Maya, but what you really want to do is Maya is set up to have a folder structure, and we want to set this folder structure up so that as we create things, they're saved in the correct folders, and as we bring in texture files, they're in the correct folder. So we want to go ahead and set Maya up for production. Now, setting it up is a two-stage process. First thing we want to do is go up here to File. I'll take that back. The first thing you want to do is to go over and have a folder set up that you're going to set your project in. So I've already set up a folder in here. It's called Setting Up Maya. It doesn't matter what it is. Just make a project folder. You might want to like make you a folder that's for our class to keep things organized. And then you could do it by week or by project. You make subfolders in here. Okay, so may want to come in here and do a folder. This is going to be week 1, assignment 2. Okay, and we'll set up our project inside of that folder. Okay, so the reason we're doing that is we want to keep everything organized. Okay, so you go to File, and we go down here where it says Project Window. This little window will pop up, and these are all the folders it's going to make for us. Okay, like see where this says Scenes? That's where Maya is going to save all of our scenes. So as we're working on a project, it'll save in there. See where this says Source Images? That's where we put all our texture files. Like we're going to be using a checkerboard pattern, so we want to put it in there. So anyway, these are all places that, you know, like the auto save down here, Maya will automatically save files in there for you, backup files in case it crashes on you. All right, so it's going to make all these folders for me. So all I have to do is click right here to make a new project. Okay, and we'll call this project week 1, assignment 2. Okay, and then I'm going to click right here. And then I'm going to find my way back to that folder that I created. Okay, and I'm going to hit select, and I'm going to accept. Okay, now that's going to have created a set of folders for me. Okay, so it created all these folders in here for me to keep all my information in an organized manner. So now another thing you have to do is then you have to set the project to the folder. Okay, so we have to tell it, okay, this is the folder that we're using. Okay, and then set it. Okay, so now automatically when I come in here right now and I want to save this scene, okay, it automatically puts me into that scenes folder. Okay. All right. So now you've got Maya set up correctly. You've got Mental Ray set up. You've got a project folder set up. And now we're ready to go to our next thing. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is to put our assets that I've given you in this folder. Okay. So the first thing we want to do is like the scenes folder. So let's go inside of here. And then we want to copy and paste in here the scene that I had you download. Okay, we're placing it in our scenes folder. Okay, we're going to go back up to our source images folder. And then what we're going to do here is copy in that checker texture that I gave you, and that should be in your source images folder. Okay, so that's scenes in your scene folder and source images in your images folder. Okay. So what will happen now is when I'm ready to come in here and I go File, Open Scene. So we'll be able to go into that Scenes folder, and right down here on Maya Scenes, we need to change this to Maya ASCII file because it's an ASCII file. And then there's the file. And so then we want to open that. I don't need to save the default one that was open when we open Maya. And so here your file comes in. So now anytime I come in here and I want to save my scene, it's going to automatically put us into that scenes folder so everything is organized. This is one of the biggest problems I have with students is that they don't organize their files, and when they're trying to send me files for me to troubleshoot their files, it's all disorganized. Okay. All right. So there's your window. Okay. And we've already got Mental Ray set up. And so now, to shade to see in your viewport, that's this button right here, smooth shading in your viewport. And then this button right here is hardware shading, which basically means it's texturing, which means when I put a texture on it that I can see it on our object. Okay. All right. So the next thing we want to do is start putting making some shaders for these. Okay. Our materials. So if we go to Windows or Render Editors, we want to go into the Hypershade. Now, if you guys have used Maya before, then you're used to a little bit different setup on the material editor. Okay, so here's our material editor. And this is very nice that they've updated this. They've taken some of the qualities of 3D Max's material editor, and now they've incorporated it to Maya, and it's pretty nice the way they've got it in here now. So as you come in here, I usually like to make my shaders a little bit bigger. You can click this button up here. And now we're going to be able to create our shaders, and then we'll have a little window over here, a little preview window. Now, one of the things that I like to do is be able to kind of see what I'm doing in my scene. So what you can do is you can go up to Windows right here and pull down to Viewport, and then it's going to pop up a little viewport where we can actually see our scene while we're in the material editor, and that's pretty nice. You can dock this. There's a lot of places you can dock it, and that's up to you how you want to do it. I like to dock mine right here, okay? And of course, you can, always change the size of these. Okay, so we can kind of see our scene while we're working in the material editor. So up here under, you've got your shading buttons up here, just like we had in there. So you click shading right here, and then this is hardware shading, so we can see our textures on here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start making some materials for these. Okay, now over here, you're used to Maya shaders. Okay, this is probably, if you've used Maya before, you've got a Blend, a Lambert. These are not physical based shaders. I don't use these anymore. I'm not saying you can't use them. There's nothing wrong with using these, but they're just not physical based, which means they don't react correctly with the lighting and what a real surface would be. So I don't use these anymore, and I'm going to encourage you not to use these. I'm going to encourage you to take the next step, which is physical based renders, shaders. So if you look over here on where it says Maya over here, you'll see it says Mental Ray in here, and I can click on materials, and here's Mental Ray's materials. And this is what I'm going to kind of encourage you to use, because they're advanced materials and you get a much better look out of your stuff. Now, you don't have to use Mental Ray. You can use the standard Maya render if you want to. You don't have to use Mental Ray shaders. It's totally up to you, but I'm going to be doing tutorials based on doing what's current in the industry, which is physical based shaders and physical based lights and physical based rendering. So the go-to shader over here is this Mia Material X. This is the go-to material for Mental Ray, and it's physically accurate. And so we're going to make one for the cube first. So let's go over here and name this. So I'm going to name this Mia Cube. I'm sorry, let's do the sphere first. Sphere material. Okay. You always want to name your materials so it's easy to tell what goes to what in your scene. Okay, then just be sure you pick it, and make sure you're in the object mode, because you can actually apply materials to a sub-object. So we want to be in the object mode. And then to apply this, all you have to do is to come down here and right click on it. And then pull up and go assign material to viewport selection, and then that'll apply it to it. Okay. Now, with its attributes over here in the color, that's where we're going to load our little checker pattern in. So you want to click this little box over here on the side, and we're replacing the color with a checker box. Okay. Now they have a checker procedural texture in here. It's a 2-dimensional procedural texture that you can use, and that's fine. But we're going to use this file that I gave you. Okay. So I'm going to click on that. And then this is where the file is going to show itself. Of course, it's not put anything in here yet. So we have to go back down here to image name. Click this button here, and then it'll take us, and it'll automatically take us, look at this, it automatically takes us into our source images. I see a lot of times people download things, they put it on their desktop, they put them in all kinds of different folders. That's a problem, because when you're going to be archiving your file later, and archiving means it creates a zip file of everything that you need to render your scene. And if your texture images are not in this folder, it'll break them. Okay. So you want to click on this and click open, and there it goes. It brings it in here. And so here is the node right down here with your texture on it. Okay. Okay. So now we want to, the reason we're not seeing the texture on here is this sphere has no mapping coordinates. Now I kind of did an evil thing, and I set you guys up because this is the nature of the project. By default, spheres have mapping coordinates on them. And so all of these primitives have mapping coordinates, but I moved them off of there. I removed them so that you would have to come back in and learn how to put your materials, your mapping coordinates on those. Okay. So for this part, we're going to want to go, minimize this and go back into our viewport. So with this picked, what we want to do is go up here to UV. There's a UV menu up here, and you have cylindrical, planar, and spherical, and then you have automatic up here too. Okay, now this is a sphere, so obviously we're going to pick spherical, and it should have put our material on there. Let's see. Let's do this again. lost our material. Let's put it back in there again. Okay, there it goes. Okay, so now the thing that you're going to want to do is to be able to adjust these coordinates though, okay? So if you click on this node, this is the coordinates for it, and you can see that it's slightly distorted. What we're wanting these to be perfect squares, and you can see that it's slightly distorted in here, okay? So what you're wanting to do is add a repeat, and this is a UV, okay? U is left and right, and V is up and down. So we want to add to the U, and I'm going to go 2, and that looks pretty good, okay? Those look pretty square. So what you're trying to do on all of these is to make sure that this little checker pattern shows up as a square and that all the squares on all these are approximately the same size. Okay, so there's our first one set up, and that looks pretty good. Okay, so now we want to go to our next one. We'll do the cube. All right, now this is all the shader for this. This button right here clears this little panel, and so then we can create a new shader, okay? So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to come in here and get a Mia material again, and then we're going to name it here. Of course, you can name these anything that you want. There's nothing magical about the name, just whatever makes sense to you, okay? And then I'm going to pick the object. Like I said, make sure you're always in object mode, because sometimes this flips to face mode, and which means I would only be putting the material on that face. We want to put the material on the entire object, so make sure you're in object mode. Okay, and then we're going to assign that to that cube. Oops, have it picked. Assign it. There it goes. Okay. So same thing. Then we're going to come in here and apply our file to it. Our checker. Okay, now we're ready to go in and put coordinates on this. Now, Maya is a little bit different in Max in that it doesn't have box mapping by default. So you won't see a box mapping in here. The way it works is on this automatic. So we want to click this little box over here on the right and go to an automatic setting. Now, by default, mine's already changed, but this will say 6 planes, which means it's going to put a different mapping coordinate on every side of this. Really, for what we're doing, we only need 3. So in other words, whatever the coordinate is on the front, it'll be the same on the back. Whatever's on the left, it'll be the same on the right. And whatever's on the top, it'll be the same on the bottom. Okay. And then we can apply that. Okay. It's supposed to be a bug in the 2016, because every time I do this, it's removing our map off of there. So let's just load it back in. Okay, there it is. Okay, and then we want to play with the coordinates on that. And so we want to make these smaller. So what we're trying to do is get these to be approximately the same size as these, okay? This is what's called pixel density, and you'll study this a little bit more later. But basically what that means is when we're creating a texture for an object, we want the size of the pixels to be the same on every object. So we don't want one object to have really big pixels and one object to have really small pixels. Okay, another thing, you'll see that this map is flipped in here. So all you have to do is on your repeat down here, put a minus in front of those, and you'll want to put a minus in front of both of these, and then that'll turn it right side up. Now, it's not a big thing, but you can kind of see in here how, let me get a little bit closer, how this is not quite lining up on the edge, and that's not really a big thing, okay? But you can do an offset here. This is on the U, so this is moving it left. I'm going to go 0.1, and you'll see it kind of moved it over, and now it kind of lined it up. It's not a big thing. If you don't do that, it's fine. I don't know, kind of drives me up the wall a bit. Okay, so there's that piece is done, okay? Now, the cylinder is a little bit more complicated. I'm going to clear my tab here again. Because really it's going to need 2 mapping coordinates. It's going to need some cylindrical mapping coordinates, and it's going to need planar mapping coordinates on the top. So we'll do that. Let's go ahead and make our material here. So our Mia material, and we'll name this one cylinder. Okay. Now, see there, see how when I clicked on this, it went to face mode. See that? Be sure you go to object mode. So you're picking it. It should turn green like that. And then we want to assign this to it. Okay, looks like there's a bug that if I apply the map and then put the mapping coordinates, so let's go put the mapping coordinates on and then put the map on there. Okay. So we're going to go here and that's picked. And so we're going to go down here, cylindrical. Okay, and we'll apply that. Okay, so now let's go back in the material editor and let's load our bitmap in here. Okay, load our checker in there. Now we'll see it in there. And then we want to adjust it also. And that looks about right. Those look pretty good. But it's hard to tell in this shot, but the top of it is not correct. Okay. So if I come in here and I go to the top view, you'll see that this is not correct. So we're going to go object mode, pick it. Now, if you're not aware, F in Maya, when you click on F, that's focus, and it'll bring an object right into your viewport. And we can see how all this stretching that we're getting in here. Okay. So that's an issue. So we'll go back to our perspective view. So what we're going to want to do now is to go into face mode. Okay. And we're going to select all the faces so everything is picked. And then we're going to switch to a front view, and we'll do our focus again. That's F. And what we want to do is deselect these. So if I hold down my shift key now and I drag across these, I don't want to hit the top ones because what I'm trying to do is deselect the side ones because their mapping coordinate is right. And I want to just leave the top one selected. Okay. All right. So now with the top one selected, and let's go in here and go to the top. So see that? We want to go UV, and now we're going to do planar. Okay. And then that'll put a mapping coordinate planar from the top. Okay. Now you'll see that that's a little bit stretched. Two ways you do it, that you've got this gizmo in here right now. So you can actually grab this corner and kind of drag that out. So they're squares. That looks pretty good. And so now we're ready to go back to our perspective, and there the mapping coordinates done on this. Okay. Now the last thing that I probably want to do is put a shader on the ground plane. Okay, so let's make a shader for that. So we'll make a new material for that one, and we'll call this one ground. And we'll pick the ground, and then we'll apply that one to that one. Okay, so now we have a Mia shader, a mental ray shader, a physically accurate shader on all of our objects. Now, by default, when you come into this shader, okay, the settings in Mental Ray are really the basis for a Mia shader. By the way, that's an Arch and Design shader in Max for you Max user. It's Mia in Maya, Mia and Maya. Is that it's like porcelain. It's really reflective. Okay. So we're going to want to adjust that. Okay. So what you want to do is to come over here and your reflectivity and your glossiness. And now you're going to want to turn that down. Now there are presets in here. Okay. That you can use as well too. And sometimes these are great places to jump off from using a preset, which will adjust your shader. Like if I'm going to do something reflective like copper or chrome. Okay. But for what we're going to do right now is we're going to control it right here. So reflectivity is how much it's reflecting objects around it. And glossiness is just how shiny it is. Okay. Now everything always reflects. So we're going to turn this reflectivity down, and let's just do something like 0.2. And then what this will do is in our glossiness, we want to turn this one down too, so that our render is not, these surfaces are not too shiny. Let's go for something like a 0.4 on that. So for our surfaces, let's go reflectivity 0.2 and glossiness 0.4. So this was the sphere I set. So let's click on, this is the cube. So 0.2 and 0.4. And then the cylinder, 0.2, and then 0.4. And for the ground, we don't want really any reflectivity. I'm going to go 0 or any glossiness on it. Okay. We just want it to be flat, and then we'll keep our nice glossiness nature and everything onto our objects. Okay. So now we need to bring up our render settings. Now I've already set these settings up, but you might want to double check yours. So if you go into your render editor, render settings, what we're going to be doing is rendering in HD. Okay. So on this common panel, if you go down here, what we're wanting is this to say HD 720. So if you have some other setting in here, make sure that you pick this HD 720. It'll automatically make this render 1280 by 720. Okay. And that's the size we want to render. Okay, and then we're going to right click here and go perspective. So it's looking through our perspective view, and then we're ready to render. Now I'm going to hit render, and then I'm going to hit pause so that you don't have to sit here and watch this render, and then I'll come back after it finishes rendering. Okay, so here it is after I've done the rendering. Nice render, nice clean render, mental ray, very nice soft shadows, area shadows. Now you'll see a little bit of graininess in the shadows here, which is all right for this project. That's just the render settings. I told it to not kick it up too high. The higher the render settings, the smoother this is going to be down here. But for what we're doing, this is fine. So that's a nice render. Then all you have to do is to save the image out, and then you post it up, and you're ready to go. Okay, so just to reiterate what we did, first thing we did was to come in and install the Mental Ray, download and install the Mental Ray plugin. Okay. Then once we installed it, then we came into Maya, and we went into our plugins references down here, and we turned it on. And then that's going to open up a whole nother set of shaders for us. And so when we're going into our overview of our shaders for Maya that we can get in here, and we've got Mental Ray shaders down here that we can use, which the Mia material is the main one to use. And that's some physical based shaders. They're just much more accurate, photographic looking. And then showed you how to put your mapping coordinates on those, and then kick out our final render. So hopefully this helped you guys. And if you have any problems, questions, just post them up on the forum, and I will give you some answers. All right. Thank you very much.